For most games, to maximise your PC's performance, you'll want to throw your money at the GPU. But as we'll see, if you do that in Star Citizen, you're just wasting your money. Star Citizen performance is all about the CPU and to a certain extent the RAM. I'll often read comments or Reddit posts from people with completely unbalanced systems. So let's fix any misunderstanding in this video. We've got 3 CPUs and we're going to mix and match them with 3 GPUs and see how they all perform. Our CPUs today, first up, a low-end option, the i5-10400, which is my minimum spec CPU on the Intel side. A mid-range CPU, we've got the 5800X3D, which is probably better than mid-range, but it's very popular and it's a realistic upgrade option for lots of people on the AM4 platform. And then for a high-end option, we've got the 7800X3D, I think the best option for people building a new system right now. The GPUs, my min-spec recommendation, the GTX 1660. The mid-range one, we've got the 1080 Ti. I recently tested this and it's perfect for 1080p and it's pretty usable at 1440p. And then for the high end, we've got the 4080, which will just about hit 60 FPS 4K. So let's see how all these parts perform together and I'll give some recommendations for anyone looking to upgrade or build a new PC. First of all, let's look at the 10400. Here we are in Lorville. We've got all the GPUs on the same graph. It's a bit messy, so I've removed the 1% percentile results. We've just got average FPS. But you will see here, no matter what GPU you pair the 10400 with, you're basically getting the same performance in Lorville. It's exactly the same in ArcCorp. We're seeing basically no scaling whatsoever. So you could throw a £1,000 GPU, the 4080, at an older CPU like the 10400. And because Star Citizen is so bottlenecked by the CPU in most parts of the game, you basically see no performance improvement. When we look at the one workload really that does really push the GPU still at 1080p, it is quantum travel. And you'll see we do now get some scaling, but even the 1080 Ti compared to the 4080, at 1080p, it's still performing just as well. You're seeing the 1660 at 1080p still fairly far behind, but it's pretty playable. And so the recommendation has got to be, if you've got an older system, so you've got something like the 10400 and the 1660, the only real option you've got is to upgrade everything. There's no point putting in a faster GPU. It will just be wasted. And really, because the 1660 performs around the 30 FPS mark anyway, everywhere, if you were to pair that with a really fast CPU, which we'll show you in a minute, again, you're not really going to see much benefit. So there's unfortunately not really a great option. If you've got an older system, you're looking at getting everything brand new, but you probably knew that anyway. Just to show you that a bit clearer, here is Lorville at 1080p with the 4080 as the GPU, but with all 3 CPUs tested. So you'll see basically how these CPUs scale. The 5800X3D is a significant upgrade over the 10400, and again, the 7800X3D is a good jump over that as well. Now, the big thing about the 5800X3D is that a lot of people out there are sitting on maybe a 3060 or even a 5600. There's CPUs out there on the AM4 platform, even going back as far as the first gen, the 1000 series of Ryzen, that could upgrade to the 5800X3D and see a pretty substantial increase in performance. AMD have recently released the 5700X3D and got the 5600X3D in certain places. The 3D V-Cache is absolutely massive for performance in Star Citizen. So if you're not looking at getting a completely new system, but you are on a current Ryzen build on AM4, the 5800X3D is the one, or even the 5700X3D I think would be a good option. There's not much difference between them in most people's testing. So it's there as a great option. And let's look at that and see how that will perform with the different GPUs. Let's go to ArcCorp and see that really it's now becoming dependent on the resolution that you want to play at. So the 1080 Ti matches the 4080 at 1080p. There's no difference. So again, we're looking at what's worth it, how do you get a balanced system, and if you've got a 5800X3D, going much higher than the 1080 Ti at 1080p for a GPU is kind of a waste. You'll see basically there's no scaling unless you start to go up to 1440p. The 1080 Ti then drops below, and we've got the 1660 there just as a baseline at 1080p. Onto the Horizon Roof, and it's effectively the same story. At 1080p, the 1080 Ti matches all of the 4080 results. The 4080 here is just not being able to spread its wings. The 5800X3D, despite being a really fast CPU, is still bottlenecking here. And so really, you've got to think about resolution. I would say that playing at higher resolutions is the best way to make Star Citizen look better. There's nothing else you can do with the graphics settings. The only real way to make it look better is to up your resolution. It does look stunning at 4K, and 1440p looks very good as well. And so they are massive upgrade options. People think about their system, the CPU, the GPU, but your monitor, the thing you actually look at, possibly is the biggest upgrade option for anybody out there. Going up a resolution class is a massive upgrade. In Quantum Travel, we do again see some scaling. You see here that the 1080 Ti is very playable at 1080p, but if you want 150 FPS from a 4080 at 1080p, you really can. I would actually say, in terms of recommendation, things around the 3080 are perfect for 1440p in this game as it stands. So I've got a 3080, I've done lots of testing with it in the past. It barely ever is GPU bottlenecked at 1440p. It is a great GPU, and anything around that mark, the 7800 XUD, things like that, they are probably where I would start for a 1440p recommendation. When we pop in the 7800 XUD, we're seeing the full potential of the game as it currently stands. There's not really anything faster that you can do. We are seeing that we now are getting a bit of a bump at 1080p between the 1080 Ti and the 4080. We're seeing also that the 4080 is hitting 4K. We are GPU bottlenecked here at 4K for the 4080. As I've been saying for a long time, the 4080 and the 7900 XTX are 60 FPS 4K cards for Star Citizen. The 4090 obviously is out there as an option, and you've got the 4080 Super that's now going to be a bit faster that's on the market. The 4090 is so expensive, but it is an absolute beast. So if you're absolutely insistent at playing at 4K and you've got all the money in the world, that's a great option. But if you're wanting to hit 60, and because actually often the CPU doesn't let you go much past 60, the 4080 and the 7900 XTX are good options. And we see that again in Quantum Travel. You can see that the 4080 at 4K is still able to hit 60 FPS, but we're going way above that once you get to 1440p. And when you're at 1080p, you're still actually CPU limited on the 4080. And just to demonstrate the GPU scaling a bit better, we've got this result where we've got Quantum Travel at 1080p, 7800 XUD is the CPU, and we've got all the different GPUs. You see the scaling between them. And again, like we said, the 4080 is still actually CPU bottlenecked at that top result there. It really is an absolute monster at 1080p. It's way more than anybody would ever need, and complete overkill and a waste of money. A lot of data, a lot of graphs in this one, but hopefully the main thing that I wanted to get through is that the CPU is absolutely critical. If you're looking at your system thinking, what can I upgrade? What do I need to do? It's 99% of the time the CPU. You've seen there that the 10400, no matter what GPU you pair it with, you can't really get much more performance. And so upgrading the CPU is often the best option if you're stuck between the two. The resolution that you play at is absolutely critical for the GPU. Again, you don't really need to go that high. So it isn't that demanding on the GPU at 1080p. And so cards as old as the 1080 Ti, obviously that's a very powerful card from the time, but things like the 4060 or the 6700 XT perform in and around that. They're all great cards at 1080p. They can play at 1440p. At 1440p for the GPU side, well, you're looking at things around the 4070, around the 3080, the 7800 XT. They're all good recommendations, I think, for 1440p. And at 4K, like we said, it's the 7900 XTX or the 4080 are kind of the bare minimum, and then anything upwards from that is great at 4K. But again, no point spending money on GPUs if you haven't got a good CPU.